Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Job Search Lunch and Learn with Linda Brubaker. I'm a career transition specialist. Yes, I'm trying out some new names, trying to figure out what makes more sense. So it's not just about job search. It's about transitioning your career. It's about finding out what skills work best for you in the areas that you want to move into. We know you really don't want to be here. And our goal is to make sure that you can move past what's here, okay, what the current situation is, and into where you really want to be. We're here to provide you with networking, advice, support, maybe even a little fun. But the idea is we want to give you tips and tricks to help you find those next forever jobs. This is my only pitch. I am a career counselor or career transitions coordinator. I don't even remember what I said. I'll have to go back and rewatch it to see. But in any event, I've been in HR for over 20 years. Over 20 years as an HR recruiter, as an executive search consultant, as an HR business partner, and as a hiring manager. And I've used that information to build on that so that in the past 8 years, I've transitioned strictly into career search assistance. Okay, job search assistant, job transition, whatever it is you want to call it. Over those 8 years, over 900 of the people that I've worked with have successfully found an offer. So one of the things that I'm telling you is that networking works, that these job search groups work, that the tips and tricks we do work. And that if you want to continue to see kinds of programs like this, because I do this for free, I know Sue does as well, and is here almost every week. But it's our way of trying to give back to you. I am working with some of you on a one-on-one basis, and I would love to work with more of you. So if you're looking for one-on-one coaching, I'd love to provide that information as well. And I'm going to add that in the chat. End of my pitch. Okay, Sue, up to you.
Thanks. I hope my microphone holds out because is it on or off? Is it
It's
okay?
on. It's on.
It was glitchy an hour ago. I'm Sue, briefly known as Sue Mentors in the Virtual World. I run a global mentoring consultancy, so I'm on calls with people around the world just like you, all in transition, looking for ways to do a better job at getting themselves known and noticed and then interviewed. Mindy, sorry. Linda didn't ask me to say this, but she is great at interview prep. We've heard that from a couple people, and I heard it from someone that I sent to her. So just an FYI, it's not a business I do or do it all well. I have to do it. So you should
Thank you.
know how good she is. And she lets me come here. I try to keep my eye on the chat, and I encourage you to. Mindy wrote something to be seen and be heard. I can't remember the three, Mindy, but the important point about that was your chat box is a place to put your expertise, not I'm so and so, but rather you made a point about and say the point, not just good point. Let us know what resonated with you, not just the speakers. Kevin's nodding his head. We all like to see the, but because when you read it, and I just read about encouraging note taking yesterday, when you read it, you remember it. It sits in your brain, in the front brain. All right, Mindy, Linda, I've got both of you confused now. Happy to be with both of you and Kevin too. Thanks so much.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a very short, as those of you who've been here before, you know that we start the sessions every time. It's a networking group. So we start with a little bit of quick wins. We're going to do a very, very short. So if I'm going to ask just 3 people today, and I know that's tough for us, okay, but 3 people to share a quick win. The rest of you can share them in the chat, or you can wait and share them next week. So if you've got a quick win to share, please raise your digital hand. I'm not seeing anybody. Am I missing somebody? Ah, there we go. You're
Hi,
up.
everybody. So, where do I begin? I have had already several interviews with this company, during the fall, and they reached out to me 2 days ago and said, "Hey, we might have a position that you might be interested in." So I had an interview yesterday. It lasted about 10 minutes. There's just so many moving parts because they don't know if they're going to keep the position. Anyway, I talked to the guy, so now I'm fresh on their radar screen. Who knows what's going to happen?
Okay, well, keep us posted.
Okay,
Okay, good luck. Is this the one you
thanks.
talked about last week?
No, this is different. I have my fingers in many pots. It's kind of driving me crazy.
Yes, but by the same token, it's the best way to get that job.
Right.
Never decide that you've got that permanent job until you actually have started the role.
Okay. I appreciate all the support here. It's great.
Always. Okay.
Hello. So 2 weeks ago yesterday, I got contacted by a recruiter who I wasn't connected with. And the next day, I interviewed with the hiring manager. And less than 2 hours after the call with the hiring manager, the recruiter called with an offer. And
Wow.
I started last Monday. So I've been a week and a half on the job now. It is a consulting role, so I'm not, you know, shutting my door on other things, but it happened in 24 hours. Amazing.
Absolutely. That's unusual.
And honestly, it was because I had recently updated my LinkedIn profile with my skill set, and I popped in the recruiters' searches because of my skill set. So it's
Absolutely
important to
fantastic.
keep these skills updated.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So there is hope, people.
There is, and I'll tell you, that's one of the fastest turnarounds I have ever seen.
It's the fastest in my life. So I just want to give everybody hope because I'd been out almost 18 months. So it definitely lifted my spirits, and my brain is happy to be engaged working. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Congratulations. Keep us posted on how the job goes.
I will.
All right, we're going to do just one more. I know that there are a couple of more hands raised, so I do apologize, but we're going to keep this short just because I know we've got a lot to talk about with Kevin D. Lang.
Hi, everybody. I'm Krishna Murali. I'm from Metro Detroit. So the win I would like to share is that I applied for a position in my core area, which is sheet metals, in a company called ArcelorMittal Taylor Welded Blanks. It's right here in the Detroit area. So it's been 2 weeks, but I managed to find the director in this organization through an alumnus. So managed to establish the contact, and this director was nice enough, even though, I mean, we graduated in different years and so on. And he just sent me an email this morning saying, these are the important things that the hiring manager is going to look for. Send me an explanation how you meet these experiences, and I will send it to the hiring manager right away. So that was good. I mean, a lot of times I don't even get any response. So I just jumped on it, took about 30 minutes, pulled the right information, and then just emailed it to him 30 minutes ago. So I'm more hopeful now. So it's a small win, but I'll take anything.
I think that's fantastic. Congratulations. Small wins
thanks.
count. You know that I say even a failure is a small win. Okay, so we turn those around. So I think that's great. Now I notice we've got one more hand up. Is this something you really need to share, or can we do it next week? Because I really want to get into our program if we can. I hate cutting people off. You know that hurts my heart. Okay, so if there's one more, we'll go ahead and do it. Okay. If not, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about our program for today, because I'm really excited to have one of the people that I learned from a lot. Kevin D. Lang is one of the go-to people for so many of us on everything LinkedIn, especially LinkedIn changes. I know Mindy Stern, who's here on the call today, talks about helping him to find some of the changes in the wild, things that he's seen, because he can't see them all, but he sees so many more than the rest of us. And he not only talks about them, but talks about why they're important. His understanding of LinkedIn and what works and what doesn't, and the LinkedIn algorithms, and how to
I'm
use
mute, but I can't
LinkedIn.
figure out how to turn off the video. I'm on Zoom. I can't. I just want to show
Excuse
my.
me, can we mute everybody? I apologize. Thank you. But his understanding of how to help LinkedIn work for you is one of the things that I look for in his posts all the time. I learn from him all the time. I'm excited to have him join us today. We're going to let Kevin introduce himself and then go, and then we'll make sure that we get some of your questions answered too. Okay, Kevin, all yours. Kevin, you have to unmute though.
There we go. And Linda, again, thank you very much for having me today. I appreciate that you chased me down. I love doing these. I had a career where I've actually had 5 pivots in my career. Some were forced upon me, other ones I made happen myself, but they always kind of came back to understanding what my values that I bring to the table and where I want to go, and then how do you put them all together to get you there. And the thing that's changed the most in the last few years is the amount of digital processing that we're all kind of under in that process to get out and get back into a new position, a new career, or even to kind of pivot into something else. And part of that is what I love to kind of discover. I'm a bit of a techie, a bit of a geek. I can get a little too geeky. So if I do, just you tell me and we'll pull it back a little bit. But if not, that's where we're going to go. I would love to kind of jump right in. If you want to know more about me, you can go to my profile. It's all there. I don't need to do anything else in that sense. I'm going to pull up my screen share. So I'm going to get right into it. And hopefully you'll see my screen now. Hopefully you'll see kind of this is my profile. That's kind of where we're going to start. I always like to look at things a little differently than what most people teach when they teach LinkedIn. And the first thing I think about LinkedIn is a business. It's not a social good site. We get a lot of social good out of it. There's a lot of good things, connectivity and collaboration and job search processes, everything else. There's a lot of good here. But LinkedIn is a business. So understanding LinkedIn's business can help us get more from LinkedIn. So that's the first thing. And not a lot of people know this, that LinkedIn is a $17 billion company a year, right? It has been wildly profitable since year one. It is the only social media site that's been wildly profitable since year one. Facebook just made its first profit, and it's older than LinkedIn. Just made its first profit about 2 years ago. That to me is incredible. The way LinkedIn does its whole process is it's all based on data of the members within LinkedIn. Basically, if you look at a profile, right? And right now there's about 1.3 billion profiles on LinkedIn, right? If you look at that profile, if you actually went deep into the code of LinkedIn, it's actually set up and it's called a resume, not a profile. That's what they call it. That's what it's coded. Well, that goes down to the core business of LinkedIn. And LinkedIn knew if we put together this platform that allowed business people, right, to collaborate, to coordinate, to network, to find opportunities, then we could attract our largest core customer, and that's Recruiter. So believe it or not, out of that $17 billion a year, Recruiter does 65% of LinkedIn's revenue. Now, if you had a store and you had to set that store up and you had one type of customer that does 65% of your business, and then you had 50, 60 other customers that do the rest, how would you set up your store? You'd probably set it up to serve that customer, get them in, get them out, get their money, right? And move on. And then the others, they could figure out how to work within that system. That's how LinkedIn functions. The customer, the core customer of LinkedIn is not the members. That's why we don't have a phone number. That's why we don't have an email that we can send to them when we need their help. We're kind of treated as basically the product. And that's what we are for LinkedIn. And that's why LinkedIn functions differently in that sense. That recruiter is the most powerful customer within LinkedIn. So whatever that recruiter wants, LinkedIn is going to get to them. Now, the way the database works within LinkedIn, so you got this 1.3 billion people on LinkedIn, right? If anybody could see anybody on LinkedIn, if I were LinkedIn, I couldn't monetize that, right? So what LinkedIn did is it actually purchased the patent for 6 degrees of separation, which means within 6 handshakes, I can meet anybody in the world. That's why LinkedIn cuts you off at the 3rd handshake. That's why you can't see a 4th, 5th, or 6th level connection. Because what they want you to do is to pay for that wall to be removed, right? So that you can get to the other 3 or the other 3 can get to you. That is the principle behind Recruiter. When you pay for Recruiter, you get the access to the whole database. That's huge. There are recruiters out there who are paying for a recruiter. They're paying $1,000 a month for 1 seat. I know Korn Ferry, and this was probably about 5 years ago, was paying over $50 million a year to LinkedIn just for access to the database. Well, if you think about that sense of building out that database and the money that you could make from it as a business, well, you got to start looking at it as it's got to be sortable, right? You got to be able to go in there and find what you need to find. It's also got to be very accurate, because bad data, inaccurate data has no value, right? Or very little value. And it has to be timely in the sense that, how long has it been in there? So these are some of the things that really happen within LinkedIn. We're going to talk about how do they impact your profile as you're building it out. And so I know that I believe it was Deborah Jones mentioned that she had done some updates to her skills. Believe it or not, skills on LinkedIn are what is termed as a market value filter. And basically, LinkedIn has established about 40 market value filter categories within your profile that help them sort the database. If you fit in the filter, they can find you, right? Most people don't fit in the filters, and that's the advantage. So I'm going to go to the most obvious one. I'm going to swing down here to the experience section. I'm going to click my edit pencil, and we're going to edit one of my experiences, which I always end up messing up my own, but we'll put it back together later. So the first market value filter is title. When a recruiter goes to do a search for people, they search for location, title, they might search for current company or previous company, and then they go into skills. What we have a tendency to do in titles is use exactly what the company gave us. Most companies give us ridiculous titles that don't exist in any other company, right? We learned this many years ago. I did the transition for the head of HR for Yahoo, internet company, right? Ping pong, beer, yeah, a little unusual. This individual's title was Cloud9 Navigator. Now, if I handed you a business card and said I'm the Cloud9 Navigator, what would you think I did? Sell SaaS services, maybe? No, that person was head of HR. So they were the chief human resource officer. We're like the number 5 in the company. We changed the title to chief human resource officer. And then in the description below, we put as the chief human resource officer, internally known as the Cloud9 Navigator at Yahoo, I did this. All of a sudden, they were findable. They went from looking for an opportunity and nobody coming to them to basically being scalped off LinkedIn within a couple of weeks, because They had the title, high demand internet company. It fit within the database of LinkedIn so they could be found. So sometimes it's the simple adjustments. You want to go in there and, a lot of people will have like, oh, but I'm global, right? Well, if I put global managing partner on the front of my title, you notice the drop-down box went away. That is not a market value title. It's fun, it's nice, but it's a managing partner title. Use the ones in the drop-down and don't add on the end, and, right? Because the drop-down box is going to go away. So simplify it. Use the title that every other company would call you. And I'll show you a way to figure out what those are. That's going to get you found in the title zone. Now, within LinkedIn, there are other areas just within this position. So here's one where you're actually looking at employment type. Most people leave this blank, right? Believe it or not, this is a descending ranking order. So if somebody does a search, like if we went to Google, any of us right now, we're not using something else, some AI. If we went to Google and we did a search, how often do we get past page 2 in the search results? Most people don't, right? If they have to go farther than that, they'll go do a new search before they'll go into page 3, 4, 5, 15, 150, a million, right? They're going to take what's up there. A recruiter is going to do the same thing. Believe it or not, you might come up in a search, but if you're not in the first couple of pages of that search, because the matches are so good and the quality of those people are so good, they may never get down to you. So you always want to be top ranked. Now, this particular market value filter is in order of descending value to recruiters. So if I pick seasonal employee, that's not as good as full-time employee. If I pick self-employed, again, a little lower on the list, I'm not going to be on page 1, 2, and 3. I might be on page 150, right? So know that this is part of the system. And some of the stuff I'll tell you today, you might not like. And I get that. Marines have an expression, you can't win the war until you understand the battlefield, right? This is the battlefield. We can either understand it and play by it and win, or we can say, I hate that, right? I hate that won't get you anywhere. Just get you mad, waste time. So we want to kind of go in there and, really kind of grab onto these. Now, believe it or not, company title, and I see this quite often. If I back up my company title here, you notice this, what's called a gray building block, right? What that is telling the database is I'm not attached to a real company. So was I really employed? Probably not. This is a database business, right? Data is zeros and ones, black and white, on and off. Gray, which is in between, has no value. I can't sell gray data. So when you pick this and you have the building block, you're basically saying, maybe I was unemployed. I don't know. I can't tell you. You won't know. They won't serve you up as the best product for a recruiter. Again, going back to that recruiter concept, if they are 65% of the business, what LinkedIn has done is everything else on LinkedIn functions the same way they serve that customer for all other customers. That's whether you're using the open search box or anything else, it's all going to use the same filtering process to get there. So you want to respect that process. Now, a lot of people are like, well, I worked for a company and it's out of business. I get that. If the company was bought by another company, right? Bob's Oil was bought by Exxon. Pull over Exxon and explain, kind of like what we did with the title, acquired by Exxon, Bob's Oil, right? Very simple to be very honest, but then to keep yourself within the searchable database. So you want to make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're bringing over real companies, because again, it'll push you down that list. They won't find you. Metroplex locations. This is huge. Because what LinkedIn has done is it's changed the location database probably 3 times in the last 6 years. And they didn't tell anybody. They never tell anybody. Just recently, within the last couple of years, my area was Dallas/Fort Worth, and it was actually area, which doesn't have a drop-down box, right? So if I had my old one, when I put this thing together, if I selected that a couple of years ago, now I can't be found by location, because when that recruiter goes in, they're going to get the drop-down box. That's the location they're going to select. I don't exist in that new location. So you've got to make sure you've got the latest in there. Now, I've got options. I always say go for the bigger net, right? Dallas, Fort Worth, believe it or not, it's an hour drive between those two cities and probably a half an hour on either side. So it could take you 2 hours to drive across the Dallas, Fort Worth Metroplex. A lot of opportunity there. But if I pick the town I actually live in, which is Granbury, nobody knows where that is. Probably not a lot of jobs pop up there, but they do within the Metroplex. So use a bigger net. It's always going to get you a little farther. This is one of the ones that people forget to do anything on, and that's office type. Anytime we don't answer one of these drop-down filters, they drop you to the least popular, right? Bottom of the list. So if you don't select anything, they're going to think of it as you want to be remote. Believe it or not, remote is the least popular with recruiters and companies, most popular with most people, right? That's how they're going to present this. So you definitely want to pick the one that fits you, where you want to go, how you want to work, and know, it will change your opportunity level. I always find hybrid is probably the one that has the most flexibility, right? Because companies right now, a lot of them don't know what they're doing. So they've put people in remote. They're pulling people back into offices. They might have you come in every now and then. Hybrid is kind of like the nice in between. If you can do on site, believe it or not, this is the top choice for recruiters. That's what they're being paid to go find people to come in, right? That's the most difficult recruiting. If you can do that, you actually almost give yourself a competitive advantage, right? Top of the list, top of the mix. So just something to think about as you get into your skill sets, right? Really important to do a couple things. And one of them is you always, again, want to use what comes in the drop-down box. So if you're putting in a skill, I'm just throwing a letter in there, you want to take what's in this drop-down box, right? I could go in, I could spell Kaizen exactly the same way. But if I select it from the drop-down, I know now I am in the filter. So definitely select it from that drop-down, right? In that sense. Now, something that I think is interesting, and you got to play with this on your own profile. I'm going to go back up to the top. I'm going to change this title to Chief Executive Officer, right? What is interesting is LinkedIn's going to look at that. They're going to look at the skills I had assigned already, the content within my description, and that title. And they're going to say, hey, you know what? These are some of the things that we saw were missing in your skill set that you might need to move forward. So how can you use this? Let's say you're a director now and you want to be a VP. Try VP in that title spot, and it's going to tell you what it doesn't see that you need to get there. Does that make sense? So it's really kind of a way to position your future, even if you're maybe not ready for it, but you want them to think that you've got these skills. If you have them, bring them in, right? My example is not as good. Others in this group are going to find it and they're going to go, wow, that's really cool. I didn't think about that. And so you can import those in. There's not a lot of difference in the titles I choose on my own. I'll just leave that. It'll go away. So really important to go in there. Now you can change which skill set goes onto the top. That can have a visual effect, but it's not going to have any other effect within the database, just so you know. Some people say it does. It does not. It's only visual. They'll show the first two plus X amount of, right? Now, people always say, do I need to assign skills per job? Do I need to assign them to my about section? Absolutely. Your about section is going to be your top 5 big picture skills, right? That's like leadership, communication. It's the big picture stuff. The nitty gritty is the skills that you can assign to position. You can also assign those big pictures into that position. But the reason you assign skills to a position is to get number of years of that skill. So if I've been doing marketing for 30 plus years and I attach it to jobs that equal to 30 plus, then they know I've had marketing for 30 plus years. That's different than just saying I have marketing, but they don't know if I had it for 5 minutes or 30 years, right? So by assigning it to each position, you're giving them numbers of years of that skill set. So real important to do that and make sure you're doing that. You can now have up to 100 skills. Do you need them? Most people, no. Some people, yes. I know that people in kind of the coding world, they've got to know 50 programs, let alone any other skills, right? So some people, absolutely, it's not enough. Most people, it's too much. But you want to use the ones that the job descriptions you're applying to are looking for, okay? So I'm going to just discard this because I don't want to make all those changes. Okay, there we go. I'm going to just jump over to one place real quick, and we're going to come back to these market value titles, but in another area. One resource, pardon me, that's been, believe it or not, on LinkedIn, available to us since 2012 is called Career Explorer. Does anybody use Career Explorer? Has anybody used it in this group? This is one of these tools that very few people know about. Now,
if you do, you're welcome to just shout it out real quick. I have a question for you while people are trying
yes.
to do that. Is that available only to premium users or
No,
to a
it's
free account
available
as well?
to everyone. Believe it or not, it's, and I think, Linda, I sent you some links. You could send this one out.
I just added it to the chat.
Beautiful, because this is on GitHub, believe it or not. It's not even technically on LinkedIn. This is where they do their skunk work stuff. So things that are a little unusual that they don't normally share, that's going to be on their GitHub. What's neat about this is it's going to look at your profile, the skills, the titles, the companies, your experience, and then it's going to ask you to pick a target position, location, and it's going to tell you what's the likelihood of making that transition, right? And what are other options that are likely for me to make? The process is terrible when you're scrolling down, things are flying around. Go back up to the top and you'll see this skip ahead. This was coders having too much fun. You plug in whatever your location is, right? You plug in the target position. And then right on here, it's going to say for a product manager within databases of 1.3 billion people, these are the top skills that other product managers have. So first thing is, do I have all these, right? If I do have them, but I didn't bring them over to my profile, this is telling me these are highly sought after based on the database. So I should be then incorporating them if I can within my profile. So the next piece over here is going to tell you what is the likelihood based on your current position, based on the target position, what is the likelihood of kind of making that transition? And it's going to tell you what skills it sees you have at the product manager level to get to this other level, right? And then it's going to tell you the skills to build. Those are the ones it doesn't see you having. If you actually do, let's say I'm looking at this and I say, well, I've done mobile application. It just didn't see it. That means I got to go back to my profile, add mobile applications, put it into the context, and maybe pick it as a skill. So the next time I come back, it's going to say you have this. So a nice way to kind of identify what you're missing in those skill sets, not just for the skills itself, but to be written in the context, because LinkedIn does compare the two. Now, I'm going to pop back to, as we were talking about skills, and go down to the bottom of our profiles. What you will notice is that LinkedIn will allow others to say you have a skill, right? And I add skills, take skills off all the time. And so they vary. I've got some with 1,000 people who have endorsed it. I've got some that have 2 people who have endorsed it. What that means basically is if I say I've got a skill, right? That's just me saying I've got a skill. If other people say I've got a skill, that's social proof, right? If 10 people say I have it, well, maybe I do. If I'm being compared to other people who have that, then I'm going to be ranked higher if I have more people endorsing me for the skill. Okay. And believe it or not, if people who are highly endorsed for a skill endorse you, that's like a multiplier, right? So within the ranking, as we were talking about, they're looking at skills. You want to make sure that your skills have others who have endorsed them to make you move up the list. And I always say the best way to do this is have a skills party. You've got a good group of people here. Everybody here could decide and say, you know what, come to my profile, give me the skills you know I have that you understand, and I'll come to your profile and I'll give you the skills I understand that I know you have. You might give 10 person to the other person, they may give you 30, right? And the next person you go over, well, I'll give them 40 because I get those and I know they have them. Don't give them anything that you don't understand. Don't give them anything you don't have, but create that skill party. If you get these things up to 99 plus, then you'll always be top ranked in those skills. And that's a huge difference when that recruiter's looking for you, right? So something to go in there and kind of create those skills parties. You're not asking anybody to do anything they shouldn't do. You're just asking them to pay attention to what counts on LinkedIn. So that will help you tremendously. Now, this next piece, people don't like this conversation. Where is it? So I'm scrolling around here. Should be right above skills. There it is. Education. If you are applying to any positions that require a X amount of education or that require certification, licensing and certification, right? You want to make sure you go in here and in the sense of complete data is better than incomplete data, right? Fill in everything they ask for. And while you're filling it in, take from the drop-down box. Now, just a couple of years ago, if I go in and edit this, just a couple of years ago, believe it or not, this was mentioned this way within LinkedIn. If I had picked my degree a couple of years ago or my licensure a couple of years ago, and I picked from the database at the time, now if somebody comes and looks for somebody with a BBA and everything else that I've got, they're not seeing me because I'm in the old database format, right? So again, you want to make sure you're using whatever comes in the drop-down box. That includes field of study. This is a little different than what I remember. And actually, I went back and looked at my certificate. It's a little different than the certificate stated, but this is what the university has agreed with LinkedIn that this is what they issue. So you can either fight the data, right, and be gray and be right and nobody finds you, or you can embrace the system and be found. So I decided to embrace the system. Now, dates are big. Everybody gets worried. They're like, you know what? If I put my dates on there, they're going to know how old I am. If you've ever been on Google, they probably already know how old you are. They already know, right? We're not going to fool them. If we could fool them by changing our dates or not putting any dates here, and the company had an ageism issue within the company, and we spent a lot of time, we get to the interview, we practice and everything else, guess what happens during the interview? If they're ageist, we're not going to change them in the interview. They're going to figure out we're not 28, we're 60. And basically what we've done is we've wasted our own time. Ageism does exist. I think it's maybe 5, maybe 7% of the companies out there. We know who they are. Avoid them. Give them the information you need to be at the top rank of the list so that those 93, 95% of the companies that care about hiring the right person will interview you. Because if you take that date off, you're either going to be at the very bottom of the list or not on the list at all, but they're not going to find you in the process. And that's in licensing and education. You know, make sure you're doing it in the right way. If your school was absorbed, was sold, you know, there's ways of, again, much like Bob's Oil and Exxon, the ways of making sure that lists within here and works. And LinkedIn has made a good list of universities that have gone out of business. And same thing with certifications. So, they do keep those, even though they don't sometimes on companies, but they do on schools and certification process.
Before you start your next, Kevin, can I interrupt you for a moment?
Yes.
Just for one clarification. So are you suggesting that a profile without a date for a education is not found to have that education piece?
Well, what happens is they're going to create a search list, and because that data is incomplete, right? Because you didn't put the date in it, it requested it. Because it's incomplete, it's going to be at the bottom of the list or not on the list at all.
Thank
And
you.
if we go back to that Google example, how often do we get past page 2 or 3? We don't.
I understand.
They don't either.
Okay.
So
And-
get it in there. I'd rather be considered by 95, 97% of the companies, and they know how old I am. I'd rather be considered than not considered at all. And so if we don't have the date in there, we're not showing up in that ranking list.
Thank you. We
So
have
that's-
somebody who's got a hand raised. You willing to take a question? Or do you want to wait till the end?
We can take questions if it relates to where we are.
So
Sure.
Kevin, I assume that's me, Linda. So my question is, you talked about adding skills and removing skills. My question is, if you remove a skill, does it lose the endorsements you have if you were to add that skill later?
Yes. So if you take it out, it goes immediately away. So if it had 50 skills on it or 50 endorsements on that skill, they're gone. Even if you put the skill back in, they don't come back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So you definitely want to make sure you're using the right ones. The other thing is often what we think is the skill, like mergers and acquisitions within LinkedIn, it might actually be M&A, right? We want to use what they're using because they're going to be the main driver from the other side looking at us. So you always want to kind of play around with it and pick the right one in that sense.
Thank you.
Absolutely. This is kind of some of this database driver that I think people need to understand. Again, going back to this is how LinkedIn functions. If we fit these, we're going to do better. Believe it or not, there are some in the top card. As you get down into industry, this one's interesting. Let's say you work for a chain of car dealerships, but your practice is HR, right? What the industry will do is it'll default to last job, the industry of the company, maybe not your focus. So instead of it saying HR, it might say automotive industry. So you want to go back and make sure the industry is what moves you forward, right? In that sense. That one's kind of interesting. Same thing with the location in this database. You want to pick larger metroplex. I must have shown this to somebody else. There is a custom button in here, which I think is neat. It's available to everybody on the profile. So if you have a portfolio that you want to send people to, that kind of stuff, it's really kind of a neat feature. If you're a premium, it will actually follow you around LinkedIn, and you've got a little more kind of customization options there. But it's just kind of neat as we were there. But you definitely want to make sure you're doing that, using even those small tools. So one of the other pieces, and this is another kind of hidden tool, and that is interview prep. Now, if you go to the jobs tab, it used to be listed on the left-hand side. For some reason, for the last 9 months or so, it has been hidden off the menu. So I know Linda shared this out, but it's pretty simple. It's linkedin.com/interview-prep/assessments will get you to this page, or you can take it out of the chat. What this does is it will have the top X amount of categories, top questions. If you have premium, it gives you sample answers. but you can, if you don't have premium, you can get sample answers just about everywhere. But what I think is really, really neat about this is it allows you right here to practice. And you can practice, I don't know why anybody want to do this, by writing them, or you can record a video, because a lot of stuff is now being done by video. But what this allows you to do is record the video answer to the question, and then LinkedIn's AI is going to critique it. So it'll tell you, my cadence was right. The sound was right. I used too many filler words. I always use right? So it would tell me those, it would count them, it would give me feedback. I can also share this with others. So they can, say, hey, I like how you answered that. Maybe try this. So it gives you kind of a little room to kind of practice. It also allows you to store those. Nobody else sees them unless you share them, but allows you to store them, and you can go back and kind of review those and see, how did I answer that? Did I like that answer? So this is a neat tool. Most people don't know it exists. If you're ever thinking of hiring a coach, I always say, come here first. Even if you came to hire me, I would want you to come here first, practice, get to a level, right? So that you're ready to move to the next league, not come in totally unaware. Get in here and start working with these, start getting the answers right so that you can even perfect them from there. So great tool. Most people don't know it exists as well. And it is hidden. So you're going to have to kind of bookmark that page. Now, back to LinkedIn's concept of, data accuracy. One of the things in timeliness, right? Timely data is worth more. Think about it in the concept. If I had an email list I was going to sell you and I collected it 15 years ago, is it as valuable as an email list that I just finished collecting 15 minutes ago? Probably not, right? Some people do keep their emails forever, but most people change and evolve. So timeliness is really critical. Now, there's a couple ways you can affect timeliness on LinkedIn. One of them is constantly changing your profile. That can drive you absolutely bonkers, right? The other one is to get engaged on the platform. If LinkedIn sees that you are being active within LinkedIn, they assume that the content on your profile must be accurate, because you wouldn't be active if it wasn't accurate. Does that make sense? This is kind of the math they're doing. So activity is really critical in setting your timeliness of data. So one of the things you want to do is you do want to get out there. If you're not comfortable posting, right, creating content, then at least comment on content. And when I say comment, you want to add value. You don't want to say, hey, great post. That to me is a drive-by comment, right? It has no value. It actually devalues you. But you want to post something in there that adds value and builds a conversation. Now, one of the things that I always find difficult is LinkedIn controls our feed. Even though they say we have control of it, even though we say we can make it better, they still control it. And they do that because there's money in control, right? They serve us ads, they push stuff that they want us to see. One of the ways to get around this, and this is, I think, critical to kind of get that activity up, if you go to the search box and you just hit search, just a blank search, right? You'll get this little pop-up. I want to search posts. So I'm going to, click post search, pardon me. I want to go in here and I want to sort by the latest, which if you sort by top match, that's LinkedIn's algorithm of what they think you want to see. Well, I just want to see the latest. I already know what I want to see. So you hit show results. Now, it's a little cumbersome because each time you make a change, you have to hit show results. The next one is, I want to know what happened in the past 24 hours. I don't care what happened last month. I'm going to hit show results, right? Now, here's the big one. You can change content type. I'm not worried about that. This is the big one. So if I wanted to know what Linda posted in the last 24 hours, I could put her in there. I could put get that wrong? There we go. I could put Mindy in there. So what I could do, slow typer. So now I'm going to say, give me these results. What it's going to do is it's only going to show me, this is like a new feed that you have control, no advertising, no sponsored stuff, no promoted stuff, no junk, just what I asked for in the last 24 hours. It's going to show me what these individuals, and I guess out of the 3, only Linda had posted in the last 24 hours. But what's neat is you can actually scroll down. I'm going to add one more person in here because you can adjust these. John in there. He's always posting stuff. So you can scroll down. What is neat is you can interact. So I could do a comment. I could, do my reaction, and then I can go right down to John's. I don't have to go back into the feed to get back there. So I've got full control of this, right? I can set up as many of these as I like, but the crazy thing with LinkedIn is you can't save this one. But what you can do is you can go to your browser, right? And most browsers have a bookmark, right? So what I want to do is I want to bookmark this tab. I'm going to name it today's whatever sesh, right? So I could then name that. And then whenever I wanted to see it, I could open up that bookmark. I've got some of them in here that have, I think this is one of the larger ones. I think, yeah, that one has 64 people in it. So I can then stay control. These could be target companies, target, director level, C-level, whatever it is in those companies. Maybe they don't post but once a month, but if I'm checking every day, I now have access to those people who make decisions in my targets, right? So you can use this. You can even do this for job search, for job postings, but you can set those up and then you can bookmark those so that you've got them in your bookmarks. So to me, that's really critical. It saves a lot of time. You're not kind of doom scrolling through the feed. You're getting exactly what you asked for, and you're getting it within a time frame that makes you probably first to comment, which is always, I think, a critical thing to do. So to me, great practice, great way to start. If anybody else is doing content here, you do know that video is being pushed. So, if you go to video, that has a great reach. But one of the things that you can do, if you ever have content that is what we call kind of breaking news, right? There's a news story out and you've got something to say about it. That's always the most popular content on LinkedIn. But here's your accelerator. You can actually go to a outside site. Again, this is kind of like the GitHub, but this is Build Your Voice. And what this is it's much like the creator program was on LinkedIn that went away. These are tools for people making content that want to stand out. But the one thing, we've helped a lot of people in getting their videos out there, getting their content out there, getting it picked up by news editors, which are huge on LinkedIn. There's a couple hundred of them worldwide. They pump out those news, but if they grab your post and they basically, add it to their post, that's where you get these incredible amounts of views and reactions. And I know Mindy's used this method. It's huge. The way you get there, if you log into the system, you go to the LinkedIn News Submit a Post form. So this is kind of a secret, but if you're posting and you want to get some activity, use this, focus it with whatever's breaking news that day that you can contribute to. And this is going to get you out there with huge exposure on LinkedIn. So just kind of a side tip in that sense. A lot of stuff, that I talk about, I've got videos on, like, content creator filters, all that stuff. This is free on LinkedIn, or pardon me, on YouTube. There's 90 videos out there. If you subscribe, I always appreciate, but you don't have to. You can watch them, share them. But there's a lot of information in there. Often I have people contact me 20, 30 a day that say, how do you do this? I just send them to a video on here. So it's a nice way to kind of get deeper information that you control. So that's another option. Outside of that, do we want to open for questions? Linda, Sue?
Kevin, I wanted to know if you have used the app, the desktop app for LinkedIn. And if you have, which one do you prefer, the browser or the app?
I prefer the browser. The app to me is a little clunky. For me, it did not have as good a connectivity. It's similar to using the browser on mobile to go to LinkedIn. It's almost like it's a little behind. The other component of that is it is an entry into your home computer that will probably collect and look at a lot of different pieces of data that you may or may not want out there. So I've tried it, I've used it, I've tried to work with it. I prefer desktop or mobile, one or the other. I'm not as big on the mobile, but there are some features on mobile that I love to use that you can't use on desktop. One of those is audio and video messaging. So there's some good value with different components of that. But I'm not a Microsoft app user in that sense.
Okay. And you cannot get multiple tabs on the app, even on the desktop, I don't think.
No, you can't do it on mobile. You can do it just on your regular desktop browser access.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can't on that app.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions?
David has one. David
Would you,
Pryor.
I'm sorry, who is this?
I think
David, you're
is
on mute.
We want to make sure we get all
Can you hear me
your
now?
questions or
Yep.
some of your questions answered, but instead of just shouting them out, please raise your hand so that we can find you and we can do this in an orderly fashion.
All right,
Thank you.
there you go.
So David Pryor, your hand has been raised for a while. Did we answer your question in the chat?
I actually had two. You answered one of them, but here's my
Okay.
second. At Mediquant, I was working on site from February 2019 to March 2020, and then I was working remotely from March 2020 to December 2020.
Mhm.
Now, you talked about the drop downs for what kind of job that would be. Would I say on site or would I say hybrid or what?
I would probably, since you've been doing both, I would probably put hybrid in there. And maybe as one of your bullets, as you're defining things, you could say, from this date to this date, I was fully remote. And from this date to this date, I was on site.
Okay.
Right. And that gives them a little clarity, shows them you can do both of those things well.
All right.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? I'm sure there are. We've answered, there have been a number of questions in the chat. The second one, most often one, Kevin, was, when are you coming back?
Whenever you want, because there's so much more that we can talk about, digging in even deeper, even into the visuals we use within our own profile can have an effect. And I'm going to stop sharing unless anybody needs me to share anything. That way I'm not taking over that big screen.
Okay. And so what I'm going to do is for people who have questions, let me see what I can. Oh, great. So
I had heard that the pipes in the header or the headline area are not good for the database.
They are a database command. So what a pipe actually says is take this or that, like a Boolean string. If you put OR capitalized in a Boolean string, a search string, it's going to select one or the other. So interesting enough, when our profile is searched within the database of LinkedIn, if we said we're in marketing pipe sales and somebody was looking for somebody who had marketing and sales, we would not show up. If they were looking for somebody who had marketing or sales, we might show up for one or the other, but definitely not both. And we might not show up at all. So whenever you use a pipe, you are definitely giving a database command, and you want to avoid that. So it's the same thing, believe it or not, in a resume. If it is loaded into a database, maybe it's the applicant tracking system that is SQL based, it can have the same effect even on that. So it looks nice when you print it. It looks nice when you show it. I use, believe it or not, an emoji that looks like a pipe, has no effect on the database, and works really well. I can see if I can throw them into the chat if I can, so people can grab those. But there's always ways of getting this done where we don't blow ourselves up. So there's emoji pipes. So they can look exactly the same. They can look a little different, which is kind of nice. We have other questions. I do have one thing I'd love to cover.
Please.
Okay, then I'm going to.
And we do have another couple of hands up, but yes. Don't want to take too much of your time. But...
Linda, do you want me to go into this one item,
please.
or do you want to answer a question? I'm going to jump in then. I'm going to go into this item that I did want to talk about, and that is if you are targeting companies, right? A lot of the companies, if they're larger, will have what's called I'm interested. Some of them will be attached to their posts. Some will be within the about of their profile. Did I misspell Microsoft, didn't I? That's funny because that was a company that also misspelled Microsoft and has a page that looks like Microsoft. If you go to the about section on any company page and you scroll down, if it's a larger company, they have this thing called I'm interested. I'm going to undo mine because I just threw it out there. So if you see I'm interested, what this does is it actually tells the recruiters at that company that you might be a perfect fit for a position they're considering that's not even posted yet. Or maybe it's one that is posted, but it's telling them I'm interested in them. You can do up to 30 of these companies. Now, because LinkedIn understands if I say I'm interested today in working for Microsoft, am I still as interested in 30 days, 90 days, a year from now? Maybe not. So what LinkedIn does, when I click this, LinkedIn puts it in a descending order of interest over time, right? So that goes back to this timeliness of data. I said I was interested here. I'm interested in a hamburger, right? Am I interested in a hamburger at 6 o'clock, 4 days from now, 6 months from now? Maybe not as much. So they put it in that descending order of interest over time. There is a workaround to this. And that is if you go into settings and privacy. We're going to go back one stage here. So if you go into your privacy and settings, data privacy, there is a signal your interest to recruiters. So you've set this up with 30 companies. Instead of going to each one of those companies and turning it on and turning it back on, you can go in here, turn it off, turn it back on, and now all 30 companies you've renewed your interest with. Okay, that's huge. So it doesn't get stale. You're always top of their list. And believe it or not, when a recruiter's looking in, and you can see on my YouTube site what a recruiter sees, that's one of the things they see. If you click I'm interested, that puts you at the top of the list. If you have connections within a company, believe it or not, that moves you up the ranking list for a recruiter. The other component, and people, have their I like and I don't like, and that's open to work, right? You've got open to work where you have options of either selecting recruiter only or all LinkedIn members. Either one of those that you select, this is going to have that same timed value of interest. So if I'm open to work today, am I as interested 6 months from now? Maybe not. So LinkedIn puts us in this descending interest level. So if you're using this tool to either attract recruiters or to let your network know, you want to refresh this tool. You can either delete it or you can make changes and save it again. You should be refreshing this tool every week if you're in a mad search, because otherwise your interest level is going down and they're putting you at the bottom of that list as opposed to the top where you want to be. So that's another way to kind of manipulate this timing of interest. I'd forgotten to talk about that, so I wanted to make sure we got that in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just so you know, I'm one of those very firm green banner proponents. So I think that open to work really works. Okay, yeah. We've got 3 more questions. People have raised their hands. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here for you. So, I didn't book anything later than this, so.
Perfect. I just lost. Sorry, on my screen, I can't see who has raised their hands. I apologize.
Let me see. I think it's probably
Lee Holcomb is next.
I'm sorry?
Lee Holcomb is next, Linda.
Thank you very much, Mindy, for helping me out.
Of course.
Here we go.
Thanks, Kevin. You gave me some really great tips. I had 2 questions. One was about the LinkedIn Top Voice. Is that something we still want? And how do you get it? And the other is the verified profile. I noticed you had that on your profile.
Yeah, and 2 really good questions. Top Voice, depending on which one you're looking at, if it's the collaborative articles, right, they no longer give away that gold badge, which was a top voice in a sense. The blue top voice, they've changed that just in the last few weeks, and it is renewable, or they review it every 6 months now. Before it was once a year, and pretty much once you were in, it never went away. Now they're doing a stringent review. And the reason being is a lot of people got into Top Voice by using pods to increase their reach. LinkedIn didn't like that, and so they're pulling Top Voice badges. It still has value because people know if you've got that Top Voice badge, that somebody at LinkedIn, and believe it or not, it is the news editors who make the pick. So when we go back to that, remember that news editor form? Using that form and giving them value to bring up is how you get into Top Voice faster than anything. Because you can't beg. If you ask, they won't talk to you, right? But if you give them something that makes their day better, then all of a sudden they're pushing you into that Top Voice slot. And it does have value. Now, the other one was verified, right? Think about it in the sense of being the perfect product on LinkedIn. If we're the perfect product, LinkedIn promotes us, right? When you verify, LinkedIn knows you're a real person, because the verification process is hard to cheat, hard to get around. Building a good fake profile isn't that hard, right? They're doing it. So when you do verify it, it does have an effect. I can tell you when I can get somewhere, 50, 60, 70 invites a day. And the first thing I go to is, was the invite personalized and were they verified? Those are the first people I try to take care of, right? The other ones may have to wait to Saturday so I can do them more in a bulk scale, right? So to me, verified means real person. Other people are responding in the same way. Now, what is interesting is some people have a hard time using the app, or they don't want to use. Here in the US, it's ClearMe, right? If you did international travel, then you're already probably in there with the TSA stuff. But if you don't want to do that, there is an affidavit form. So you can do ID affidavit form in help, put it in there as a request, or I can get you a link here in a little bit. But there's an ID affidavit form where you go in front of a notary republic, you show them your stuff instead of uploading into the app. You can process it through that. Now that really helps if you have a name that's maybe not on your driver's license, right? All you have to do there with a notary is bring in something like, a couple of bill statements that say, you're Bobby Sue, where on the driver's license says Joe, right? You could do that and get that notary to approve it, whereas ClearMe would not. Now, it does better now with nicknames than it did. It didn't do them at all. Now it does them. So if you're William and you go by Billy, it's going to do it. If you go by Billy Bob, may or may not. So it has some ability to figure out what nickname should be based on IDs. So it's a little better than it used to be, a little easier to use, but that affidavit form helps a lot.
Okay, we've got Bob. He's got a question. Bob, can you unmute? There you go.
Just to thank you, Kevin. It's enjoyable. We've been in connection for about 10 years now, and I've enjoyed your postings. A couple of questions. The pipes keep coming up in conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first got on LinkedIn back in 2004, people would do something similar to a pipe or do a long list and not put any commas in. And I told them that the search engine at the time with LinkedIn didn't work well with commas, or had to work with commas. But the best thing to do was do a laundry list up and down and put a dot or a number or some sort of character in front of it. So, but anyway, people just need to understand LinkedIn is not Google and Google is not LinkedIn. And I was wondering if that was still the case now that Microsoft's taken over LinkedIn or not, if you've seen any changes.
But and the only thing I know is with the way the database functions, if it is a database command, we want to avoid it. If we can get the same effect by using an emoji that looks like a pipe.
Well, I love your idea there. That
use
was beautiful.
that, right? Because it'll get you to the same place. It'll give you the visual maybe you want, but it's not going to mess up your search process. So and that works, believe it or not, even with Google and LinkedIn, because they both see it as a picture and they don't give it any credit in the search process. So, it works extremely well.
Can you bring your profile back up for a second? I've got a quick question that shows up there, and well, it's not. That's sort of a conundrum, showing up and not showing up on LinkedIn. All right, so under there, up the top bar for business.
Top bar. Yep.
Next, okay, right there. I've had little red dots start showing up there, and if I click on the down arrow, nothing's highlighting. I have no idea what they're trying to tell me. And they never explain things when they do them anyway. You know that. You've been on there long enough to recognize that LinkedIn is not going to share, as you said earlier, and they're not even going to respond to questions. They're like, no comment.
It is saying that something is active or unset within those components. So you almost have to go through and click on each one of these links and find out, because at that point, it'll take you to somewhere that you'll probably then see what it is. You'll have to kind of figure out which one it is, because it won't light up these. It'll only light up here. And I've had that before. Mine always comes back to the usually billing has been in the past. The other one was marketing programs. So those have kind of popped up with that red dot, but no explanation.
And SSI. You still find that to be a useful tool to work on for people?
Useful, but limited, because SSI, first of all, is a tool created to sell Sales Navigator. You cannot max out the two middle metrics on that without Sales Navigator. Can't be done. The outside two, they can be done by using LinkedIn in a kind of collaborative, open networking way. You can maximize your two outside ones, but it is a tool made to sell Sales Navigator. What I do find value, if somebody's just starting in LinkedIn, it can give them a scale of improvement, right? If you don't have Sales Navigator, If you're getting into the upper 60s, mid 70s, you're doing great. There's nothing much more that you can do outside of, pay LinkedIn more money to get more score in that sense.
Oh, they'll take every dime we can give them. That's for sure. Oh boy. Anyway, all right. Thank you, sir, very much.
Absolutely.
Enjoyed it. Very, very, very informative.
Very cool. I appreciate that.
Okay, we've got another couple of questions.
Somebody must be on mute.
Somebody's asked Kevin while I'm trying to find the next person up, Jerry Jones. And I lost him again.
That's actually Julie.
Julie vote.
Hello. So, Kevin, I think my question kind of follows a bit with the last one. I was told a bit ago that having titles like your licensures, MBA, CPA, things like that in your name would make you fall down in the search. I've not been able to verify that. I have seen where having parentheses will kind of blow you up from the search results, but is it true maybe that you shouldn't have that? And I don't know if it's a comma that was flagging it, but I was told by someone.
If you actually go into LinkedIn Help and you look at the name area, they say it should only be first name, last name. I actually incorporate an initial in there. Believe it or not, I was restricted on LinkedIn. I was put in LinkedIn jail for putting the D in there. And they said, that's not your first name, right? Kevin D. And believe it or not, it's on my driver's license that way. There's some more letters to the D, but I was able to prove it, so they let me keep it. And, they don't like anything beyond your name. So for a while, it used to say you could put in there like earned education and certificate kind of designations. It doesn't even say that anymore. It just says just your first name, your last name. And that's really what they want to see in there. Do they go in and restrict you, by kind of scanning? I don't think so. I've not seen any proof of that. But if anything does happen, if somebody, let's say, reports you, that's one of the areas that they will come back and say, well, you can't have these in there. And there's a interesting story. There's a lady who runs a community in London. And believe it or not, she went and had her name changed to add the rainbow icon between her first name and last name. That's Leah Turner. To me, it's confusing because LinkedIn had to allow her to keep that because that is her first name, last name legally now. But it confuses it for other people. So you're not supposed to have anything in there but first name, last name, and you can put middle name now. That's been approved.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I like about having initials there, if somebody who doesn't know me or is a little fast in the way they're responding, they always address me as Kevin D. And so it's kind of like a spam detector. In a way, if I know it's coming in Kevin D, they didn't take time enough to personalize it. Take the D off. What else can we go into?
Okay, so I'm going to let Lori go next.
Yeah, thank you so much for all this great information, and I really appreciate it. My question is you've taught us so much about how we should change our profiles. Do these recruiters now just have some kind of a large database that sorts us by these drop-down boxes? Do they even look at what's in do they even read our profiles anymore? So I'm really now confused after learning how this world has changed since I started with LinkedIn. I don't even know what's my Dropbox is, like I have so many endorsements on my skills. I don't know if those skills are even pertinent to the Dropbox, drop down boxes.
And you do only want to use ones that move you forward, right? I always say, back in my venture capital days, this was pre software as a service. I used to be able to do tax and employee tax and all that stuff by hand, really accurate. I think I only messed up once in 4 years, and the guy showed up at my door at night and said, "Can you pay me?" And I said, here's cash. I'm not going back today. And that will never be in my presentation. I don't have tax software, employee tax payments. I don't have that in my skill sets or in my content because I never want to do it, right? I don't want to be known for it. So you definitely want to go back and make sure you're not using skills that kind of send you back the other way, right? So definitely use that. And the way, you think about it, if I put in this title box, VP sales, I'm going to get back a group of search results for people, right? And this is kind of how they would be doing it, but they've got more drop downs, but I could do more drop downs, in that sense. This is what they get. So they're going to get something listed very similar to this. And you can actually see on my site, you can go through the video that'll show you what a recruiter gets, but they get a ranked list like this that is closest matches on top, moving down. And that's really what they're going to see. So they're going to see a little bit of this, and then they might go, okay, I'm going to go to that profile, right? So really, really important to know, they're getting a little bit of it. You got to really sell them, within this component, make sure your headline makes a statement, and this is kind of the basic information they'll see. So from there, they're going to then probably look at you and kind of decide from there.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, the same
much.
search engine works whether you're paying or not. You're just limited on the open box.
All right, excellent session.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there one more question? I think I lost him. Sorry about that. Okay. Kevin, this has been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
I learned a lot. I always do. I added some notes into the, there's one more question. You willing to take one more, and then we're going to say that's
Sure.
the end?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, I can't show my face.
That's
I'm on my
okay.
phone. It won't show the video. When you were talking about the open to work sign, I do have a question
Mhm.
about that. If I try to reset it, I have heard from a previous webinar that I attended that you have to wait a week before you can reset that. Is that true or false? Or can I just turn it off and turn it right back on?
You can do it as often as you want. And what you'll find out is if I deleted this or if I change something and hit save, it gives me a little pop-up box and says it's been updated. If I do it again, it's going to give me another pop-up box that says it's been updated. So there's no time frame. Now,
Okay.
if a recruiter sees you, popping up several times in a day, they might not really like that. I don't know, it depends on how much they pay attention to their screen. So,
Okay.
yeah. But I'd say if you're doing it weekly, it keeps you top of the list.
Okay,
Agreed.
sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
No,
And I
thank
will
you.
tell you one thing, when you're doing this, after you hit save, if you have this where it's open to the public, right? It'll give you that option to make a post. And it has some template stuff in there. Get rid of the template, write your own post, replace that image from that goofy one that they've got, put something in there. And you can, believe it or not, you can put a GIF in there even, but tell them what you're doing, tell them what you're looking for, tell them how you can help them if they can help you, right? Put it all in there. And what's interesting about that post, it is the only post on LinkedIn when you do it that all of your connected network will see on LinkedIn. Because the way LinkedIn normally does post, because they only have a limited, right, feed, you can only shove so much in there. The way they do a post is normally they send it out to 5% of your most active network. If they respond, react, comment, they might send it out to another 5%, right? If they respond, they'll send it out again. If they stop responding, they stop sending it out. This is one of the only posts that will go out to everybody. They'll see it at least once. So you can use it like a PR blast. Even if you don't want the banner on there and you want to go right back to recruiter, You can do that, but you can send that post out to your complete network. So it's a great tool in that sense. I just say stay away from all the template stuff that they throw in there because it doesn't look that good, and definitely
Okay.
replace those pictures. I don't like the goofy pictures they do, and I think people run away from them when they see them.
No, I agree. So redo the open to work. Do it often. Use your own post, not theirs.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
their post doesn't tell us anything, yours does.
Yep.
And by the way, for all of you who are seeing those posts, whether they're coming from anyone in this group on these sessions or not, comment on them, like them, share them. Because what that does is it not only increases the visibility, Kevin's already said it's going to go out to everybody in their network. But we want to make sure that it goes out to your network too, because you never know where that next opportunity can come from. So that's part of the pay it forward.
And people do notice that when you do that and they know you're also looking, but you're helping out somebody else is looking. That's the kind of people I want to work with, right? That help each other. And so it does have that impact. There's that givers get 10x,
Well, thank you very much. This has been a very informative webinar. Very, very cool. Thank you so much.
All right.
Kevin, thank you so much for all of this. You've answered so many questions and raised some more, but that's okay. I think we're going to just keep learning and growing, and this has been fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.